Kanaka, always mindful, and it's a beautiful thing to see. So, mahalo. My brother John, I like singing this song. He wrote this song. It's called River Run, but it talks about, as he described it, like a cycle. It rains, and then the rains go into the river. The river flows down to the ocean, and then evaporation occurs, I guess, and then the cycle is repeated. But it goes like this. The rain comes down into the river runs out to the sea. Sea surrounds an island, silent is home. Come on down to the water, come and go with me. We could both jump in, swim on out to the sea. Oh, let's go down. Go down to the water, the water of love is sweet, flows to you and me. The rain comes down into the river runs out into the sea. Sea surrounds an island, silent is home. Come on down to the border, come and be my friend. What if we cross over and not come back again? Oh, let's go down. Go down and cross over. Water of love is sweet. It rains down over me. Oh, the rain comes down into the river runs out into the sea. And oh, the sea surrounds an island, silent is home to me. Come on down to the border, come with me, my friend. What if we cross over and not come back again? No, let's go down. Go down and cross over. Oh, the water of love is sweet. The rain down over me. Oh, the rain comes down into the river runs out into the sea. Oh, the sea surrounds an island. This island is home to me. Oh, the rain comes down into the river runs out into the sea. No, the sea surrounds an island. This island is home to me. This island is home to me. This island is home to me. This island is, oh sweet island, home to me. Johnny. Saturday. He was the first guy called to try to bail me out. He said, Abba, can I bail you out of good mainland Tuesday, tomorrow, or Wednesday? Mahalo to my sweetie for bringing my guitar. I knew I had to do this gig this morning when I left the house, but I went in the van, I took the guitar out, and I went to work. I had to make an emergency phone call. Lucky she didn't leave the house yet, so. Hey, guess what I did? What? Take the guitar out instead of leaving me. Anyway. Tune up. One of my favorite songs, Nico Martin wrote, Guatemala Blues, Nana Kuli Blues, but I slowed it down a little bit and it goes like this. Who's gonna go? So I'm gonna go down on the road again, starting with the mountains left me. I know where I began. Tired and warm, woke up this morning, found that I was confused, spun right around, found I had lost the things I couldn't do. Oh, where I will go, the wind only knows, good times around the bend. Get in my car, going too far, never coming back again. Down on the road, mountain soul, far on the countryside, birds on the wings, forgetting their wild wild over the winter side. Oh, beaches they sail to build their hotel. Birds all alone, getting there while I'm for the side. Oh, beaches they sail to build their hotel. Father and I was the one. Birds all over, sunlight at dawn, singing while I'm blue. Singing while I'm blue. Oh, singing that old boat drive blue. Oh, singing while I'm blue. I'm at a stage in my life where it's like whether I ever write a song again in my life, and I'm not really, my brothers and sisters write more than me, but if I never write another song, there's so many beautiful songs written by, you know, Poe Kanaka, you know, it's considered contemporary, you know, all of this, but just so much, so many, everywhere, just, no need, just interpret lyrics. Dennis Kamakahian, he wrote this song. Talks about the drive from North Kona to South Kona. Gila-gila ikaw no hindi ikaw ko na oh, que ela recua, ele papai, oh, we know. Alla imiloli Ave Maria Oh my God Oh hakale kikai Iwaiki Ihame Allah Haina kahino Oh walala Wahiriku hilangna Haina kahino Oh walala Wahiriku hilangna Inay ke aomona Ihame Allah something. But I suppose this is an ongoing kind of series or thing, so you know, just look for Andre, give you the scoop, the update. Frank Hugh wrote this song. So yeah, but thank goodness for tuners. Before it was pitch pipe. A lot less noisy. For the first time I heard this song years ago, always something resonated inside. I'm still trying to figure it out. It was written by Leo Anderson. It's called Stand Up. And if you want to join along and sing, all you gotta say is stand up. So it goes like this. It was for you stand up. Brothers and sisters of these islands, what are you living for? Lost in the shuffle of the money jungle, walking right past the door. If you can't find your way out, you must stand up for each other, stand up for all mankind. Don't wait until it's gone before you stand up. We live in the streets of these islands, people still are not free. We have paid the price of freedom, we're living in democracy. We have the choice to do nothing but stand up for the ocean, stand up for the island. Don't wait until it's gone before you stand up. Hard to keep a child from danger in this society. Worry about my woman, she's not here with me. How can one man make a difference? Stand up for the other, stand up. Cool over ice cream, don't wait until it's gone before you stand up. Stand up for the man who feeds his children from the depths of the sea. How he feed them when there are no fish for his family, and no ground to grow anything to eat. Stand up for each other, stand up for all mankind. Don't wait until it's gone before you stand up. Let me tell you to stand up for the kingdom, stand and its power. Don't wait until it's gone before you stand up. Yeah, one more. Okay. Once again, hello to the Center for Hawaiian Studies for hosting, Brother Andre, all everybody else attending today. And yeah, dig out, dust off some old books, tell your friends, tell your cousins. You know, we all know somebody up there somehow, so. First time I heard this song, it was in a stairwell at Honolulu Community College. I was thinking I was going to college. I was going to be a fireman and play music because I heard that was a pretty good gig. And so there was a 2-year associate's degree in fire science that just started the year I graduated. I won't disclose that year, but halfway, I used to walk by this stairwell all the time and I used to hear guys singing, man, going off. One day I opened that door and that was the end of my college career. And hanging out with the boys, sitting on my books, but through that came this song. It's called, he called it Uamau, but it goes like this. Took away our native tongue, took away our land, because we ate with heart and soul. Still you been the hand that fed you and protected you, gave you all its trust. Now I know what's deep within your heart and soul. Oh my girl, seem to say what's done is done and turn your back on me. Talk about the golden road of opportunity. Time has come to change the dreams we have tried and lost. Time has come to claim the land, no matter what it costs. What else do you want? All you said and done took away the sand and sea. Still you want the sun. Our straight big skies are buildings, scarring up the land. Time has come to stop these things, the time to understand. Uma quero cantar capulão. Uma quero cantar capulão. Uma quero cantar capulão. Thank you.
Mahalo nui loa, Ernie Cruz, always there to support the movement. Ernie's always been real gracious with us with music and supporting many of our events.
I'm a Dre fan.
Okay, so welcome to our Ho'i Ka'iwi Kua Mo'o. Kawama Moa Kawama Hope Pa'ahau Book Drive Lounge. Basically, we're trying to get some books together to get into the prison. As some of you may or may not know, we have Native Hawaiians are disproportionately represented in prison, overrepresented, yeah. And we have studies and evidence that's showing there's deeper reasons than we may have been aware of, probably our community hasn't even been aware of, that relate to issues of institutional racism, with Hawaiians getting longer or harsher sentencing, more Hawaiians in prison than any other ethnic group, highest rates of recidivism, yeah, going in, coming, returning back to prison, yeah. Some of my friends call it doing life in installments, and it's no joke. It's a big issue. I got involved in Pa'ahau prison advocacy, really because the brothers, who are, some of them are here, we'll talk about it, but because they started to assert their religious rights within prison. They began to see contradictions with religious freedom, and they wanted to engage in traditional Hawaiian ceremony. And it was really, this whole struggle really starts with the Pa'ahau themselves. And for me, I see that as an important, it's the essence of self-determination. Yeah? And it was through their own consciousness that the Pa'ahau began to fight. And they fought a long battle and a hard battle to get where they are now, which is really not that far. Yeah? But through my involvement, my wahine, Camille is an attorney at the Native Hawaiian Legal Corporation. At the time, they were fighting they were just wrapping up the first lawsuit, yeah, for religious freedom, the one with the settlement. And there was a group of Hawaiian inmates, a small group, about 40 guys who were in Mississippi, Tallahatchie, Mississippi. And we were asked if we'd be interested in going out to Mississippi to teach what we know about Makahiki ceremonies. And because of our involvement with cultural groups like the Protect Kaho'olawe Ohana, Halimua o Kuali'i, our men's cultural group, we had some foundation in our ceremony. So me and my good friend Kapono Souza, we decided to hop on a plane. We flew into Memphis in February, shorts and slippers, freezing. we never know. We drove down to Mississippi and we went into this prison and we basically just talked with the brothers, shared, you know, listened to their stories, talked about Makahiki, shared Mo'olelo and what we knew about protocol and stuff with them. And while we were there, we spent like 15 hours a day in the prison for like 4 days. And it really transformed us and made us aware, but, you know, to like some element that we had really never been exposed to, and most of us never get exposed to. But inside the prison and, you know, in the same room, sitting side by side, working with these brothers, you find out that we're all human beings. People just, you know, make mistakes in life. Not every inmate commits heinous crimes. Many of these inmates are young guys who get caught up in mandatory drug sentencing and get stuck in prison for really petty stuff related to addiction. And it really opened up for me and Kapono this a sense of compassion and humanity, and it gave us a stronger political analysis. You know, we have about 4,000 inmates. And Hawaii is the biggest customer of the Corrections Corporation of America. So that means that Hawaiians are really being used as capital, you know, for this private prison system. And it's problematic because as a private prison, they need the inmates to keep coming back to make their money. They're not interested in rehabilitating nobody, or why would they slit their own throat and work themselves out of a lucrative business? So what we saw was, you know, that there's a real problem and issue going on. And I've had personal ohana. My sister is just getting out of prison right now. She had a 10-year term. My father's been in prison. I remember walking my dad to Hilo jail when he was on furlough every day after dinner, walking back to the prison. You know, and it was in Arizona. I ran into my first cousin in prison also. But so for me, as my brother Kalekua Ka'el said, you know, really leadership is about service to the Lahui, and I've always challenged myself to keep busy and try to make a difference and do meaningful things for the Lahui. And Pa'ahau was one of the areas where I felt there's a big puka. You know, there's not too many Pa'ahau supporters or advocates, you know. And so, through the process of just getting involved, trying to kokua and make a difference, I met one of the, I would say, the leaders within the prison who had the consciousness of asserting their rights. Yeah? And I really feel that I cannot even begin to tell you the story. But Kalehau Kamau here, sitting here, this is really his story, you know. And if I could, Kalehau, maybe ask you to come up and say a few words about the experience. Because this is really his story, and the other brothers in there, yeah. But, you know, Kalehau told me, I'll tell you this, it'll hit me real powerful. When they started to assert religious rights, in order to suppress them, they put you in the hole, right? They just locked you, they just isolated him in the hole because they felt like, you know, they were making trouble, raising consciousness is not a welcome thing in prison, yeah? You want to come tell us about that a little bit? That's right. I would say Kalehau Kamau has been really a very conscious political Pa'ahau that I've ever met.
All right, Mom. First of all, mahalo to all you guys, all your donations, all you guys kokua kako'o in our effort. My name is Kalehau Kamau. I come from Papakolea, and I come from a family of practitioners. And and then, you know, through the 70s, I just went off into everybody in my family. They're still doing what, you know, doing what they're doing. But for myself, I ended up in prison, and while there, you know, especially when we were sent away, you know, there was this feeling, this need of wanting to continue or wanting to go back to where I came from, and get those things back that I was raised, these values that I was raised with, because I come from a really good family. And in that effort, as Andre was sharing, you know, it was like stone walls. Nobody was interested in that. You know, if we was doing Kamehameha Day, and that was okay. You know, as long as if we was doing anything to entertain these people and you know, teach them something, that was okay. But whenever we spoke about doing it for ourselves, our own spiritual growth or our own healing, it seems like they didn't want to have anything to do with that. They would give us that stare, like, you know, like they offended or something for some reason. But anyway, yeah, it was a long and arduous journey. That phrase right there come from one of the attorneys from NHLC, and from the beginning he said, you know, this is going to be a long and arduous journey, and it has been, and it continues, and it's like 10 years ago since our first Makahiki. So 10 years ago we did the thing we requested to do Makahiki, and they never they shut us down. And as Andre was saying, from one prison, I was doing the grievance thing and stuff like that. So I ended up in a hole. They shipped me to another prison. So when I got to the other prison, learning from the past experience, just me going through it by myself, I felt that, or we felt, there was a lot of prisoners too, that the more guys we get behind this, you know, the likelihood of them sending like 50 guys all over the place would be less likely. You know, easier if we just pick on one guy. So when we did our lawsuit, there was 33 guys, and we eventually won that, giving Hawaiians in prison the opportunity to practice their culture, actually, under that First and 14th Amendment. Everybody else out there on the continent, from the Native Americans, I've learned a lot from them. They was telling me, when I went to Minnesota, they was telling me, hey, what you guys do, you guys gotta do this. And they was doing the sweat lodge, they was doing all these things. And us guys, we was on the recreation, we was on a different department, we was on the education, you know. But anyway, you know, I just, the struggle continues for people on the inside, Pa'ahau, and you know, on behalf of them guys, you know, mahalo plani, you know, for you guys kako, you guys help, support, donations. Mahalo and mahalo to people like Andre, Kapono, you know, these guys, you know, because they help us. We in there, they help us get to you guys. You know, their voice outside here. So, mahalo, Andre, mahalo.
Yeah, so, you know, as Kalehau said, you know, one of the interesting things that we encountered right away was when we're talking about, you know, trying to support Hawaiian prisoners with freedom of religion. Because you got to understand, First Amendment, right? So the prison is mandated by federal law to support freedom of religion. So in the prison, they have to allow time and space for the Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormons, Catholics, Protestants, whatever. Even the Wiccan witches, and even the Satanic Church. Yeah, you know. So, but then when it came to Hawaiians, the first thing was, oh, Hawaiians don't have a religion. And then the second thing was, okay, where's your Bible? So we see this. They don't even, so I said, you know, my thing was, where's your Bible? It's ethnocentric. You know, they didn't even know what the word meant, you know. So we're really dealing with a bureaucracy and an institution that doesn't even understand its own contradictions, yeah. So it's you know, we gotta continue and fight. And before I call up our next speaker, in closing, I just want to say, why are we doing this? Well, why should anybody care about Pa'ahau? You know, There's many reasons, but the first and foremost, you know, my inkling and my awareness came when I ran into my own cousin who killed my grandmother with a baseball bat when he was high on ice. And I came face to face with him in Arizona, Saguaro, as we were starting the Makahiki ceremony. I didn't even know he was there. And I had to really face my own humanity, you know, my own sense of forgiveness and ho'oponopono, and then really my own sense of ohana, yeah? Because here I am saying, hey, you know, when someone goes to prison, do we just take them out of the genealogy? You know, they're still ohana, so that's something that's very important to understand. The second thing on a more practical level is really self-interest for all of us. A lot of young Hawaiian men and women end up going to prison. And what I believe is that many of the young drug offenders are really nonviolent offenders. And it's really in prison that they get the best education in violence that money can buy. Yeah, they spend 5, 10, 20 years in prison. And then, as Kalehao told me, they only start to begin to prepare you for transitioning back in on when you're ready for at the end of your sentence. So we're talking years of prison acculturation. And I started to think about that. If we don't care about the paha and their rehabilitation and what they're getting or what they're not getting, if they come out of prison more damaged than when they went in, with a higher sense of violence or a criminal mindset, if we don't care, then it's foolish on our part, because where do they come back to? Who do they come back to? They come back to our community because that's our ohana. I learned real quick that only about 5% of the population pulls life terms. That means 95% of paha are coming home. They're coming home to us, to our community. We should be concerned in what condition. Because if not, then we just become victims of the crimes if they continue the lifestyle and the behavior. Yeah? So my goal is to really challenge the system, but also to challenge our lahui, to pull together, to malama and kakao paha. Mahalo. Our first speaker was going to be retired Judge Michael Broderick, who had a really transformative experience as a judge when he started realizing that he was locking up Hawaiians. Michael Broderick is the husband of Maile Meyer, owner of Native Books. And basically Michael told me that he quit being a judge because he saw the contradictions. Unfortunately, he's not able to be here because of some health issues. But we have a representative and a substitute from Michael, who worked with Michael closely on the Joint Task Force. And if I could call up Sonny. Sonny was contracted to help write the final report, for the Native Hawaiian Justice Joint Task Force, which was examining the issue. So Sonny's going to talk a bit about the Joint Task Force and relay some manao from Michael Broderick.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sonny Ganaden. I'm an attorney and a writer. I grew up in Southern California. My parents are Filipino and Mexican, and I ended up moving here about 10 years ago. As a lawyer and a writer, I was the contracted writer for what became this document, the Native Hawaiian Justice Task Force report. I worked for the last year on this document with the Honorable Michael Broderick, who was just mentioned. He can't be here today because he's recovering from post-operative complications. So I'm going to talk a bit about the remarks that he made. I don't have the gravitas of a judge who was on the bench for over a decade. So what I'm going to do is just present his words straight as he sent them to me. And I'll talk a little bit about the task force, my experiences as a writer, some of the other recommendations that the task force made. And afterwards I can answer any questions because I know this document like the back of my hand. As a family court judge, I have more than 10,000 cases in CPS, juvenile criminal court, and restraining orders. Of the CPS cases, approximately 50% of those are Native Hawaiian. Of the juvenile criminal, approximately 50% of those are Native Hawaiian. There were conclusions reached as a judge. There's a direct connection between historical intergenerational trauma, or language, land, and culture, personal trauma, sex abuse, physical abuse, neglect, and criminal behavior. It's the judge speaking, but I came to believe with all my heart that many Hawaiians have a hole in their soul because of this historical, intergenerational, personal trauma. This trauma often manifests itself in criminal behavior. My belief is reaffirmed at every summer. Throughout the summer of 2012, the Native Hawaiian Justice Task Force was made pursuant to a statute, Act 170 of the Hawaii State Legislature. We went around the state to take testimony from different community members. Many Hawaiians spoke of historical, intergenerational, and personal trauma and the effect it had on their identity, its connection to criminal activity, and why so many Hawaiians are in prison. So for me, the task force finding that I thought was most important was the finding about trauma. This is how it reads. Native Hawaiians have suffered from severe intergenerational, historical, and political trauma and the loss of land, language, and culture. This collective trauma has negative economic, health, cultural, and educational impacts on individuals and often manifests itself in criminal activity. Any effort to reduce the number of Native Hawaiians who come in contact with the criminal justice system must include a multi-pronged approach to addressing this trauma. The task force came up with a recommendation to include prison staff mandating annual mandatory training regarding trauma-informed care. This is backed up by a lot of the data that's coming from all over the world regarding how to treat individuals who are locked up and reintegrate them into society appropriately. One of the other ever-present questions is, how do we get at trauma and what can we do about it? I just don't know the answer to that. The second belief I came into the task force with, and again, because of what I saw every day in family court, was the absolute critical importance of culture. In short, as you know, as I discovered, culture matters, and it matters a lot. This belief in the importance of culture, which is integral as we work to keep Native Hawaiians out of prison, was reaffirmed at the summits and is reflected in the task force findings and recommendations. After learning of the significance of culture, I've concluded that one answer is probably not to modify the existing criminal justice system, but to work to come up with a separate system, one that incorporates Hawaiian culture and values. This discussion on culture naturally leads me into the issue of Native Hawaiians in mainland prisons. The task force heard from approximately 160 people from across the state. Some themes emerged around the issue of Native Hawaiian prisoners on the mainland. Persons held out of state should be returned, was what everybody heard. Why? Well, this is it. They're at a disadvantage compared to those in state facilities. Charlotte Manley, the staff attorney for the Native Hawaiian Legal Corporation, she testified. What has happened is that Native Hawaiian men have been ripped away from their families, their communities, and from the Aina. The psychic and spiritual impact of this removal of being alienated from the land is devastating. How are they to atone? We know empirically, for a fact, that without regular visits from family, inmates are less likely to succeed once released. How else are prisoners in non-state facilities at a disadvantage? This goes for non-Hawaiians as well. Parole hearings themselves, we know that video conference parole hearings, that's the way they do it now. So basically, a guy has a camera pointed at him, and his parole hearing as to whether or not he can get out of jail is videotaped, streamed to a circuit court judge here in Hawaii. He's woken up really early in the morning. There's his attorney there in court, and the prosecutor there in court, and the judge up on the bench, and this guy on the TV. The Hawaii Paroling Authority has said that it puts him at a disadvantage. That's the people who are actually making the decision. In 2011, just 2 years ago, HPA members said in an Attorney General report, live face-to-face connection with candidates for parole facilitates interpersonal communication. This may raise the likelihood of release. It's a state document. There's one more major way that prisoners in non-state facilities are at a disadvantage. It's reintegration with the community. Native Hawaiian prisoners are released from mainland facilities. Often they have no adequate transition plans regarding programming, employment, and housing. That's something through the Department of Public Safety that is not established when these guys are so far away. We even heard of inmates being lost in the system at the completion of their sentences. That was a term used in the Attorney General report and in our report, lost in the system. As you think about the disadvantage I just listed, keep in mind that what we heard, what resonated with us is that these disadvantages are greater for Hawaiians and non-Hawaiians. So we know for sure that prisoners held out of station to return, but it's tricky. Because as we travel across the state, we also heard that mainland facilities have better and more available programs, and that the living conditions are less crowded and that the mainland prisoners receive more respect from staff. The answer then is clear. Return mainland prisoners to Hawaii and ensure that they receive sufficient programs, adequate living conditions, and respect from staff. There's other several themes that emerge as we produce this document. You can tell when we wrote it all. The governor on record said that he was supporting the return of prisoners. We know that the state's contract with non-state facilities has increased exponentially since 1995 and costs over $60 million a year. We also know that in 2010, the state auditor found when it comes to the Correctional Corporation of America, there are no procurement code policies and procedures, no objective evaluation to measure that corporation performance, and no plan for contracting for private prison beds to reasonably ensure fiscal responsibility. Even the Attorney General's office, as recently as 2011, said we need an audit of the Department of Public Safety's contract with the Corrections Corporation of America. I know you care about these issues. I can promise you that I care about these issues. Now, we all need to make sure that the decision makers, those who can make the changes, care enough to do something about it. So that was the judge's words. There's also 38 recommendations in this document. It took a lot of work to get all that information in, and a lot of people didn't agree with it. Because I'm here representing someone who's kind of a lot more than me to lose, I can't talk too much about that stuff, but it's enough to say that what we're talking about is equality and human dignity. That a lot of people worked on this stuff. We hope that you read it, you check it out, and in the coming years, that the community supports systemic change to the criminal justice system. Thank you.
Now there's, that's kind of translated into some efforts with support from OHA, especially Kamana'o as a cultural practitioner, to look at Hawaiian culture as forms of rehabilitation or as elements towards rehabilitation within the prisons. There's been this Pu'uhonua summit that I attended where looking at creating an alternative Pu'uhonua kind of concept alternative to prison. But these things are kind of, when you look at the beast of CCA and the money involved and the state and the governor's attitude, these things seem really far and out of reach. So for me, it's important that as a Lahui, we come together and support and push it and stay on top of the issues as much as we can. Getting these books into the prison is one baby step, but I think it's important. In my experience, books in prison will get read over and over and over again. Right now, they have hardly any Hawaiian books. In 2007, we took up a library of about 300 books. We found out that because of miscommunication in the prison, that most of the books got burned and destroyed. And I was upset, and I was kind of like, the amount of work it took to get those books. And I mean, we had a fundraiser. Auntie Terry helped us here, Rusty Old Steam Pipes, benefit fundraiser for Hawaiian inmates. We got monies. We got Debbie Nakanelua to get us Hawaiian Airlines comp the shipping, and me and Kapono and another friend Ed, we flew them out there and hand delivered these books. And to find out that they were just burned was disheartening and kind of depressing. But it also made me angry. And I was like, you know what? We're going to do them again. This time we're going to start from the top down. So with help from Michael Broderick, with help from Kamanal, we're going to work with Ted Sakai, the Director of Public Safety, who has already given a verbal commitment that we can get these books admitted into the prison library and cataloged as part of the prison library so that they can be borrowed by the inmates and read. With that said, if I could welcome our second speaker, a woman who has been at the forefront of incarceration issues and advocacy and support in Kako'o for many, many, many years, who's been an inspiration to me. Kat Brady, Community Alliance on Prisons. Mahalo, Kat.
Well, as you know, Hawaiians are definitely overrepresented. And it's interesting because the report that OHA came out with in 2010 is called The Disparate Treatment of Native Hawaiians in the Criminal Justice System. And just the word disparate really freaked people out. They said, oh no, it's disproportionate. It's not disparate. And yet when you look at the statistics, you see that at every stage in the criminal justice system, Hawaiians there's more and more Hawaiians at every stage. So to me, that seems disparate. Currently, well, I would say in 2009, 32% of the people who went to prison for drugs were Native Hawaiian. Even though we know that drug use is pretty even across the socioeconomic spectrum. But who's going to prison? It's Native Hawaiians. So something is wrong, and that is disparate treatment. It was really interesting at the legislature when the report came out, and then a task force, a bill was going through to create a task force. The prosecutors just couldn't deal with the word disparate. So they'd get up and say, it's really disproportionate. And I'd get up after them and say, you know, you could call it Bob. The bottom line is the data speaks. There are more Native Hawaiians in prison than any other ethnic group. Why is that? And when you go to Arizona, there are more Native Hawaiians there than any other ethnic group. Why is that? Well, what's interesting is that when CCA, they actually come to Hawaii, they go through the files, they decide who they're gonna bring back to Arizona with them. And I was told by somebody prominent in the Department of Public Safety several years ago that they choose Native Hawaiians because they think they're docile. How insulting. So there's lots of issues going on with CCA and even in our own prisons here, which are in pitiful third world country shape. It's embarrassing that Hawaii has a system that's called corrections that actually doesn't do much correcting, but what it does is it's like criminal college. So for me, the interest, I'm an environmentalist, and around the mid-90s I was trying to figure out where the heck is all the money coming from? Where is it going? We had plenty of money in the 80s, and in the 90s we had none. So what was going on? And what I found out, I went to the budget office and I got 3 big budget books and I brought them home, and everything's in code. You know, every department has a code, every division in that department has a code, every program in that division has a code. So once you crack the code, you can kind of figure out what's going on. And the one budget that was constantly rising was the Department of Public Safety. So I said, well, who's in prison? And what for? And I found out most people were in there for drugs, nonviolent drug offenses, or drug-related crimes. So my next quest was, well, how much drug treatment do we have in prison? And how much drug treatment do we have in the community? Well, I found in prison we had less than 14% drug treatment, but you could get drugs. You just couldn't get treatment. And in the community, we had about 50% fewer beds than we had 10 years ago. And I was like, so what's this about? It seems like this is a plan. This seems like a plan. If you want to take a group of people and incarcerate them, remove them from the community, and in most cases you're removing the breadwinner from the family, what would you do? You'd figure out a way to remove them from the system, to make, from their families, to make them dependent on the state so that their families would go on welfare or some sort of public assistance, so that they become beholden. I thought this was a really bad plan and really racist. So as a Caucasian, I felt, well, it's my job to actually say something and say, this is wrong. Something is wrong and we've got to do something. So I've been doing this about 15 years. And about the first 7 years, it was me testifying on one side and Peter Carlisle on the other side. And we were definitely at opposite ends of the spectrum. But what I noticed was that the prosecutors and the AG, they never used any research. They would push these draconian laws, and sometimes they would push them by using examples of something that happened somewhere else. And I'd get up after them and say, how come you're not asking about the research? How come they're bringing up something from California that really doesn't happen here? Well, we're all paying for this, and what's that about? So they actually made me a better advocate, because now I don't say anything I can't back up. Everything, all my testimony is footnoted, it's all based on research. It's not me talking. This is what the data's showing here, and also what the research around the nation and the world is showing. So around 2008 or 9, I became aware of this thing called justice reinvestment. And it's something that I've been talking about for a long time, except I was calling it repurposing our money. But justice reinvestment was an initiative that was put together by a nonpartisan nonprofit called the Council of State Governments. And they basically come into communities, come into different states, and they analyze all the data from arrest through reentry. And I thought, wow, one of the things about Hawaii is that we like to keep everything here, so we don't like other people looking in. And I thought, wow, this would be the first time that there would be an outside look at our system, and that would be kind of interesting. So I talked to the people who were the initiators of justice reinvestment, and I told them, not yet. We have a Republican administration, but I think in 2010 we might have an administration that would be more amenable to this. So let's just keep talking, but we're not quite ready yet. So in 2010, around June, I got the chairs of public safety in the House and Senate to write a letter to Justice Reinvestment, inviting them to come to Hawaii. You know, thinking, okay, in November we might have a new administration. And we did. And then we found out shortly after the governor took office, December 6, 2010, we found out that the Department of Justice was so enamored of justice reinvestment in Texas. That was the first state, a very red state, that actually embraced justice reinvestment. And in the first year of implementation, they saved $443 million. Of course, they had like 160,000 people in prison, but they saved $443 million and built up all these programs in the community. And they saved money, they took prison construction off the books, and I thought, wow, this is really interesting. So the Justice Department really liked that. They took justice reinvestment under their wing. And then we found out that an RFP, a request for proposal, was due February 1st. And we were like, oh my God, the administration is still putting their, cabinet together. They're not even ready to do this. So Community Alliance on Prisons drafted a proposal. But the previous November, I called the CJ, the Chief Justice, and said, I'd like to talk to you about justice reinvestment. So I brought a former dean of the law school and another advocate with me, and we met with him for about an hour and a half, and I left a lot of material. We talked about justice reinvestment, we talked about who's in prison, and how there are so many better things we could actually be doing. And he was really open to it. So then in December, when we found out the RFP was due, we wrote the draft proposal. And one of the things that Justice Reinvestment likes is to involve all three branches of government and have it be bipartisan. Well, you know, Hawaii is mostly so-called Democrats. We have probably like 5 real Democrats at the legislature. The rest are sort of, I don't know what they are, but they're not really, they don't subscribe to the things that are in the Democratic platform. So we have one senator who's Republican, Sam Sloan, and we have 6 Republicans in the House. So we drafted the proposal, we presented it to the governor's office. He really liked it. And I had been feeding them information all along, saying, you know, this could be your legacy. They really liked it. They did a little tweaking on the proposal. We, of course, had done all the research, so everything was footnoted. But the last day, it was due February 1st, and January 31st, I was running to the Supreme Court to get the CJ's signature, to the Department of Public Safety to get their signature, to the governor's office, to the Speaker of the House, the Senate President. Everybody signed on. And in April, we found out that it was like 13 states that applied for this, and Hawaii, they granted 5 states technical assistance, and Hawaii was one of them. So that was way cool. So they came in, 3 analysts, and they looked at all the data. And the first thing they realized was that, why don't we have data? Because no 2 systems in criminal justice, no 2 agencies collect the same data. So it was impossible to create data sets because they were collecting all different things. So the first thing they did was build that platform so that we could actually collect data and create data sets. And what they found was that we're incarcerating way too many people. Hawaii has, our crime's been the lowest in 30 years, and yet our population kind of has stayed static at 6,000. So something wasn't right. They also found that we're putting the wrong people in treatment, where most of the low-level, non-violent drug lawbreakers would be much better served in community programs, where actually we have huge, long waiting lists at our prisons for treatment. In Hawaii, we have about less than 300 treatment beds. I don't know if I'm standing too close or...
The wiring and the wiring, it's not too.
Oh, okay. So, and in Arizona, we started off with like 240 beds, and then it got truncated to 120 beds. So we had like 300 people on a waiting list, and most of them were not being granted parole because they didn't complete their programs. So I had been talking with the paroling authority, saying, you know, you're denying people parole for something that they have no control over. They want to be in programs, they want to do this, they can't get in. And they're paying a price, and the community's paying for this. And this is not right. So I'll close with something, a bill that I've been pushing at the legislature. It's not a perfect bill, but it's a start. And it's about mandatory minimums, trying to eliminate mandatory minimums for B and C felonies, drug felonies. So I figured start with a narrow group, which actually covers most of the people who are incarcerated, and get them used to the fact that mandatory minimums are really draconian, and they're pushed by prosecutors. And why are they pushed by prosecutors? Because they're unaccountable. All their work is done behind closed doors, and courts sentence in an open session. So prosecutors have tremendous power because they're the ones who actually do the charging. They're the ones that actually figure out, okay, we're going to charge you for this or that, and we think it's really important that we hold them accountable. So there's a bill, SB 68, and I'm going to leave some material on the table. My group is called Community Alliance on Prisons, and we have a sort of a blog called Cap Watch, and I put stuff on that blog to let people know what's going on at the legislature, testimony that's needed for things, and to explain what's really happening. So I sent out a thing, it's on my blog today, and I have a sheet that I'll put on the table about what mandatory minimums are and why it's really important that the community speak out. They're coming up for second reading. Under the Constitution, every bill has to have 3 readings in each chamber. This is the second reading for the House, and it has to pass that or else it's manque pau. So we really need people to contact legislators. And then yesterday I created a brochure that I passed out to all 51 members of the House today that has research and why it is so important that we get rid of mandatory minimums. And I'm trying to appeal to the left, to the right, to the middle, so I included, you know, a really weird thing happened at Congress. Senator Leahy, who's the chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and Senator Rand Paul, who's on the way other side, they got together and they actually wrote a bill called the Justice Safety Valve Act of 2013. And their thing is to get rid of mandatory minimums because they know they're unjust, they're unfair, they're expensive, and they don't work. And all the research shows the longer someone is in prison, the higher their criminality is. So why are we trying to create criminals, a criminal underclass? Why aren't we trying to build strong and healthy communities? So I'll leave that stuff over on the table. I hope you pick it up. I hope you call your legislator, at least your own personal legislator from your district, and beg them to support this bill. It is really important, and as I said, it's the left, it's the right, it's the middle. Everybody's starting to see that this is really not a good thing. The economic crash of 2008 was kind of an uptick for justice because it started people realizing what we're doing is unsustainable. You know, in Hawaii, we spend $200 million a year on corrections. What could we do with that kind of money in the community? How could we build strong, safe, and healthy and just communities with $200 million? Oh, I got plenty of ideas. Thank you.
Hello to Kat Brady. Real quick, I just wanted to share a thought with you folks. Why is Hawaiian culture important? Why are we giving these, our brothers and sisters, Hawaiian books, cultural books? In my personal experience, I've been able to teach classes, Hawaiian cultural classes in Halawa, in OCCC, in the Ko'olau Boys Home, in Mississippi and Arizona. And the one thing that I saw, in particular with the brothers in Arizona, the more hardened inmates who've been in longer, was that when they began to find a Hawaiian identity and consciousness, that the Hawaiian identity transcended the gang identity every single time. And I remember being in a room full of these different gangs, the Usos and the West Side, and And but when they would come together, the brothers would say, "Hey, in this room, we Hawaiians first." You know, the leaders would step forward and say, "We don't have no gang stuff going on in here. We're here from Makahiki." And so I started to realize that if we promote Hawaiian culture and identity, once they begin to see each other as Hawaiians, the natural progression is aloha. They begin to have aloha for one another. And we start to help them unravel the genealogy, and they start to realize their kinship and relationship to one another. Then that aloha bond gets stronger. And I'll tell you right now, aloha ikekahi in prison saves lives. Yeah. If we can help our brothers find their sense of identity and their Hawaiianness and their aloha ikekahi for one another, then I believe it's less likely that they'll be killing one another. And as some of us know, it made the news last year. One was headline news. One young Hawaiian man, Bronson Manua, was stabbed over 100 times by another Hawaiian. And so that's why Hawaiian culture, to me, and identity is so important. It can literally save lives inside the prison and outside. Okay. Our next speaker, I think will kind of share with us some very important things going on right now. We have two representatives from the Native Hawaiian Legal Corporation, if I can call you up. Charla Manley. And Lena Ala. Who are both from Native Hawaiian Legal Corporation. And they're going to talk to us about the latest lawsuit. Hawaiians are fighting, once again, for certain rights. Yeah, so mahalo.
Aloha. Aloha. Good afternoon, thank you. We're glad to be here and have this opportunity to talk to you guys about what we're doing in this lawsuit for Native Hawaiian men that, as Andres talked about, are incarcerated on the continent far away from their families. And our clients are 8 men who want to practice traditional Native Hawaiian religion while in prison. And the situation for prisoners is that they have incredibly reduced rights once they're inside the prison walls. The Constitution still applies, but in a diminished way. But as far as religion goes, the federal government's actually recognized how important it is for rehabilitation and to kind of give people in prison something to hold on to. So there's actually a federal law that provides religious rights with a heightened protection. But the situation in 2004 when Native Hawaiian Legal Corporation first became involved is that the state refused to recognize the Native Hawaiian religion as an authentic religion. So even though there's this heightened protection under federal law, it didn't apply to men like our clients who wanted to do traditional things like the makahiki, because the state was saying, what is Native Hawaiian religion? There's no such thing as Native Hawaiian religion. So what NHLC was able to accomplish in 2004 when they sued the state for the first time was to have Native Hawaiian religion recognized. And the lawsuit focused on makahiki because it includes so many aspects of traditional religious practices. You have the ceremonies, you have the chants, you have a communal gathering, it has sacred food offerings, and it was not only an opportunity to allow these men to engage in these practices, but it also, educated the state about some of the basic tenets of the men's faith. So what happened was NHLC entered into a settlement, and the state recognized makahiki, and for a few years, the men who were at that time kept in Diamondback facility in Mississippi were able to practice, the makahiki, and there were spiritual leaders from Hawaii who were able to come in and support the men in doing these ceremonies. But then what happened, the state consolidated all of its prisoners in Arizona in 2007, and CCA essentially built a new facility just to house Hawaii inmates. And once the men were transferred from all these different prisons to Saguaro and a few in protective custody to another nearby institution, the state said, okay, you know, the settlement doesn't apply here, and really Makahiki is the outer limits of what, you know, Native Hawaiian religion is. And they kind of froze in place what activities the men were allowed to engage in. So we brought a second lawsuit in 2011 trying to further define what types of things can Native Hawaiian men in prison do. And what we found, unfortunately, is that often the institution still challenges anything they want to do. Is this true? They challenge its authenticity. So even though the state has recognized Native Hawaiian religion, it's still always this question about if the men's practices are actually authentic. So as an example, one of the claims in our lawsuit is to allow the men to go outside when they do certain, you know, chants, sunrise chant, ALA being an example of one that would, you know, make sense. You do it outdoors. And other religious faith groups actually are allowed to go outdoors. For example, Native Americans, it's pretty well accepted that a sweat lodge is a standard practice that they can go outside and you know, participate in that ceremony because the courts have recognized that, okay, this is something that's important to their religion. But as far as Native Hawaiian men wanting to go outside, again, the state and the prison, you know, challenged, is this something they need to do? Why do they need to do this? And prevented them, said, no, you can't go outside except for, you know, very specific celebrations like Makahiki. As an example of another ongoing issue that we also raised in our lawsuit is the right to retain certain sacred items. And again, in the prison context, you know, you can have a crucifix if you're a Christian to help you with your religious practices. That's well accepted and nobody challenges that. But for Native Hawaiian men who want to have, oftentimes it's something that someone in their family has made to pass on their mana as protection. And the facility is is having a hard time deciding if they want to let, you know, men have that type of religious object, and also how to allow them to get it, you know, to have a family member send it in. So that's something we're trying to work out in our lawsuit as well. The third type of claim that we have is the actual, again, the observance of the Makahiki and what can be allowed. And although food is traditionally a part of that, you know, the prison has a lot of problems with allowing outside food in. Another type is trying to get access to spiritual advisors. One of the main problems you can imagine with everyone being up there so far away from home, pretty basic, is having access to someone who's knowledgeable about the Native Hawaiian religion, and how are they going to get up there to see these men, and can the state you know, provide that opportunity for them. So these are a few of the issues that we're fighting for in this lawsuit. I'm going to let Charlotte answer any more detailed questions about our actual legal claims because we're under a protective order, so we can only speak generally about what we're trying to do. But one of the most basic issues that some other people have already talked about is, you know, what is the responsibility of the state to Native Hawaiian men once they send them, you know, away up to the continent, away from their families, away from their home, to continue to protect their traditional and customary rights, which I think most of us here know under the state constitution have a heightened protection. You know, to be able to do things that are linked back to traditional practices, and that's what these men are really fighting for. And I think Andre summed it up really well. You know, this is something that, you know, some people find in prison. Nobody questions if you're a born-again Christian, if you're true in your beliefs, and we need our men to be able to, you know, have access to their cultural beliefs as part of this process they go through in prison to, you know, come back to being able to come back into the community and we found that it is really important to them and helping them. So I don't know if you want to come up, Charlotte? Okay.
I'll just keep it brief. I think they covered all the main points, but I'll just say that it has been quite a ferocious battle. We filed this lawsuit in early 2011, and here we stand in 2013, and we're still in the investigation process. It has been quite a battle just getting the most basic information that we would need to move this case forward. That's the technical side. On the spiritual side, it is clear to me for our clients, they are, for certain, their characters being assassinated in the course of this lawsuit, and they have undertaken this lawsuit at great personal risk. We have pending right now a motion for a protective order against intimidation and retaliation by prison officials at one of the facilities. And it is not just our clients, but it is other inmates who are stepping forward to testify about what is occurring at one of the facilities. And they have contacted us about different ways in which they are being intimidated. When we first filed this lawsuit, it was limited to some very specific claims: having an outdoor space, having access to certain items. And in the course of this litigation, it's really mushroomed into more. And we've been forced to deal with very basic rights, like the right of a person to consult with their attorney and client, with their attorney in private, to have private attorney-client communications. And now we are dealing with a very basic issue about being able to file a lawsuit to vindicate your rights without intimidation and without retaliation. It is bewildering to me how the sincerity of our clients and the men who are willing to step forward to testify on their behalf can be questioned. Because imagine what it would take for you to testify against someone who has complete control over your life, and you are hundreds of miles away from home, and you don't know, and in fact, you know it is unlikely that you will receive a visit from a family member who can come in and check on you. And you have major complaints to the state officials who are supposed to come and monitor what's happening there. And those complaints have not been addressed. They've gone unheeded. Imagine what it would take for you if you could be written up on charges for carrying an affidavit in support of our lawsuit into a class at the prison. You would imagine if you were to receive disciplinary charges for that. And what does that mean for someone in prison to receive disciplinary charges? It could mean anything from spending time in the hole for 60 days to being kicked out of a faith pod. One of the men who stepped forward to testify in support of our lawsuit was kicked out of the so-called interfaith faith pod at Saguaro. What does that mean? It means a lot for someone in prison. It means when you come up for parole, you've got to explain things. For one of the men that has stepped forward to testify in support of this lawsuit, he spent 60 days in the hole. He lost his job, which means a lot when you're in prison in Arizona and you want to talk to your family or your friends long distance, or you want to buy something in the commissary and what that means. So he lost his job. He was a leader in the classes that Saguaro does permit, and he lost his position as a leader in that class. So the men who have brought this lawsuit and the men who have stepped forward to testify in support of this lawsuit are doing this at great personal risk. And I fear more for what will happen at this point once the lawsuit is over. So I think it is very urgent for all of us to put our minds and our spirits together to figuring out how can we bring them home. Thank you.
Just a quick note before I introduce our next and final speaker. One of the things I experienced inside the prison was how, and it's not hard to imagine, but we pretty much live in a Christian-dominated society. So it's real easy to be pro-Christian in prison, right? Because the guards, staff, the faculty, most of them are Christian. So you'll see, you can easily see the inequality. They had a bulletin board with the schedule of religious gathering congregations. And you had the Catholics were meeting 3 times a week, the Protestants were meeting 3 times a week. The Wiccans only got maybe twice a week. But the Hawaiians only got once a week they were allowed to meet and congregate. And I remember, to me, it was real powerful, simple evidence. When I stole that little bulletin off the bulletin board. And, you know, I see how when people become born again Christians, it's celebrated, yeah. And Christians are happy. When the brothers when they want to engage in traditional and kind of as our theme, Ho'ika Iwi Kuomo'o, when they want to return to their traditions, it's questioned as insincere, was it authentic or not? So they had, at one point, the public safety was considering having Hawaiians register with OHA if they were going to be a traditional practitioner. And I wrote her a quick letter saying, you do that, you're going to have a lawsuit on your hands. They also want Hawaiians to have this grace period where if you're going to become a traditional practitioner, then you got to have like 6 months to be, you know, at one point that's what they were trying to do. You got to be going for 6 months to be bona fide, you know. And I question that, because what is authentic and what isn't authentic? Who can question sincerity of religious expression? I don't hear Christians praying in Aramaic. Does that make it insincere? The language of Christ, you know? So, you know, I just start to see how they're trying to deconstruct and obstruct the ability of Hawaiians to be born-again Hawaiians every step of the way, yeah? And I'm a born-again Hawaiian. I consider myself an ex-Christian, born-again Hawaiian. I wasn't a Christian by choice. I always tell my parents, hey, you guys are going to baptize me? I never even wait till I had the ability to determine for myself. Violated my self-determination. so yeah, over time I learned, and I returned back to, you know, what I felt was meaningful to me. Anyways, so the issue gets complex. Mahalo to Leina Ala and Charlotte for explaining how religious expression and freedom of religion is not quite so free in prison, yeah, and at odds with the way other denominations are treated. But if I could introduce our last and final speaker, who will kind of brief us on some of the latest efforts towards supporting Pa'ahau. Well, the latest effort that on behalf of OHA and what OHA is trying to do to get involved and to kokua and to kako'o Pa'ahau. I'd like to introduce my friend, my brother, Kamana'opono Crab, Kapohana, the foundation post of OHA.
Velina ki aloha ki a kakua po e na hoa. Iau koe na kumu na hamano ke ia kula nei. Ko hele ana mai ma nei e lohe e pila mo kei a papahana no na kanaka e noho I ka paahale paahao. To all of you, to Andre and his committee, and who took time to coordinate today's gathering, mahalo for the invitation to share. Mahalo to all the speakers. I get to come to here, see Sunny. Now that we no longer the Criminal Justice Task Force, and see, get an update from Kat and listen to what Native Hawaiian Legal Corporation is doing, which is really Makai law. Because I think to address this big problem, it really needs an army of people. Personally, for me, why I take a particular interest in those who are incarcerated is that when I was very young and I had black hair and I was about 80 pounds lighter, I was a very exploratory, adventurous young man. And during my younger days, I participated in very curious behaviors that at the young age of 21, I landed up in San Francisco, in the Bay Area. And I had a bench warrant out for my arrest. I was several $1,000s in debt, and I was going through a very difficult time and struggle, you know. And as you know, I listened to Andre talk about, you know, what is the value of culture and how does it impact or influence one's life. At that time, I was one bench warrant away from being incarcerated on the mainland. And, you know, I knew then that, you know, I needed to reconnect and come home to my family, my mohana. And at that time, I was hanai by my great-granduncle. He was the youngest brother of my grandmother. His name was Robert Kaho'okele Na'awau. Just so happened, he was in the 1960s, he was the warden for OCCC. And the reason why I was kind of hanai and raised by him is because my parents at the time felt that, you know, I really needed, you know, those days you don't go to a psychiatrist or marital family therapist or a psychologist like we go today. You know, I still was brought up old school where you don't need those guys, you go to uncle. You know, and uncle was he was the last person you go to, and he'd tell you like it is. So he was Manaleo, he was pure Hawaiian, he was native speaker. I would say for high school level education, well educated, but he knew where he came from, he knew who he was. Most of all, the value that I took away, as Andre has shared, he shared with me what it is to be kanaka, to be Hawaiian, and that, you know, wearing the koa shirt, a model, or raising the Hawaiian flag doesn't necessarily mean you're proud to be Hawaiian. A lot of times you say, "Nana ilo kone no konao." Look within yourself, in your own spirit and your na'au. If you power in that, you know who you are. And I think a lot of the things that we learned today in terms of genealogy, about ancestors, traditional practices, even traditional beliefs, you know, if that becomes part of our lifestyle, it makes a difference in terms of your worldview. And that's what made a difference in me, changing my life and deciding to come back to school. And that was well over 30 years ago, about. Actually, I'm 27 now. Another reason why I'm passionate about incarceration is because, you know, we talk about our brothers on the continent, is that when I look back at my life, when I was in high school, there wasn't a lot of opportunity for us, you know, for college, university opportunity. A lot of times that was reserved for, you know, outstanding athletes, even though I played football, basketball, or very valedictorian 4.0 students. So a lot of my friends and I, you know, we didn't have like the kind of AHA like scholarship gatherings we have today. We had basically a counselor who decided, should you go community college or you should go Stanford, you know, and they probably pretty much told you where you go. Me and my friend Dave, we all ended up KCC and at here University of Hawaii. We were enrolled in school and we came to school, but we never went to classes, you know, because we were into natural agricultural farming and marine surfing sciences. You know, that was our thing, you know. But the reason why I share that, because two of the guys I grew up in high school with, we played football together, we partied a lot. It wasn't until almost like 15 years later, after we graduated from high school, that one of them was a good friend of mine, and he asked for help. And I told him, what you need help with is because he got busted by state police for dealing methamphetamine. But as a result of that, he left Hawaii and he went to Oklahoma. And in Oklahoma, he met my other high school classmate, and they both met in Oklahoma and did their time there. And when he came back, he shared that with me. And I was so struck by that. He's like, wow, you know, they go to Oklahoma to do time. And here we are, you know, just like, you know, from high school to this time into their mid-30s, that they're living their lives, and the despair, you know, the despair, the remorse, and really the loss of hope, being hopelessness and helpless to do nothing, you know. So I always remember that, because I believe a lot of our Paha brothers and sisters, they experience that. So even a greater you know, reason to bring them home for healing and rehabilitation. On behalf of the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, as Kat had shared, we conducted a study a couple years ago and completed it with the help of professors from the University of Hawaii and the Justice Policy Institute to provide the data. And that's not the only time that there was data on Native Hawaiians. You know, if you look back at the Yolomau Task Force report in 1985, and even before then, we knew for almost 20, 30 years that Native Hawaiians were the most populated. So that's nothing new, okay? And we as Kanaka need to understand that where we are today, 2013, in the 21st century, how much we have changed from statehood until now. If you look at the measurement of success for Native Hawaiians as Kupao'aina of our own homeland, where have we progressed? And when you look at a lot of the either health, education, social status, incarceration, we seem to have the negative statistics, which is true. For me, I've been in mental health, behavioral health, health medicine for the past 20 years. So, you know, I can give you any quote that you want, you know. I think it's more important today, as the Pohana for the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, is that we have to embrace and look at what the issue is, but do not dwell on it. You know, let our anger, our passion, our frustration turn to more positive energy, which really involves advocacy with a purpose. Okay, what do I mean by that? You know, typically I'm not one to like get involved on committees and task force because I'm already involved in a lot of meetings and task force. But I agreed to be on this particular task force, which was in legislation 2 years ago. Sonny was part of it. You know, Kat used to come to the meetings, and I was the OHA representative. I was one of several member task force to look at the OHA data, but that brought prosecutors, public defenders, community people, criminologists, judges, to take a look at the problem. But most importantly is to take a look at what are very common sense, simple solutions in terms of looking at the substance abuse laws. You know, if we know that you know, close to 50% are non-violent substance abuse users, you would think this state would have substance abuse treatment. You know, and if they're non-violent, why are they put in environments or housing with other violent offenders? So that's kind of common sense stuff. But it takes a group of diverse people from diverse backgrounds. And this wasn't really only for Native Hawaiians. So a lot of those recommendations, and these are policy recommendations. These are solutions and positive steps that the judiciary, the legal system can enact. And to enact for the betterment of anyone who is incarcerated, male and female. So that came out to be about like, how many pages, Sonny? Huh? 28-page report. You can go to Office of Hawaiian Affairs. All of the recommendations are on there. OHA funded for us to take the task force to every island, except Lanai, Kaho'olawe, and Niihau, but they had the, what do you call, video teleconferencing in. And I'm very proud to have sat on that task force is because as a result of that, OHA introduced one legislation, which I think is a first step, is to have OHA member as well as a community member who has a cultural and traditional cultural practices background to be on a committee that involves very similar stakeholders in judiciary, public defenders, and who have input into changes within the Hawaii State Correctional System. So what I mean advocacy with a purpose is you advocate by sharing your voice, but with that voice comes a responsibility to speak on behalf of the people in the community you serve and to make recommendations so that you get your seat at the table. But more than that, you have to open up doors and opportunities so you get people there to make changes. So I think that's a really good start. So I believe I would like to continue, and we'll be seeking someone from the community who has incarceration experience, traditional cultural background, that has the passion to serve. And the purpose for this really is to advise, guide the state corrections system on how to implement Native Hawaiian cultural programs. Bing! Did you get that? Let me try that again. This committee is about how these people sit on, well, provide guidance to the correctional system on how to implement Native Hawaiian cultural programs. Bing! When was the last time you ever had one program or one position to do that? Never. Okay? So that's advocacy with a purpose, you know. It's like konane. Okay? You move over here, and so you gotta fake like you're gonna go over here, but you really gonna go over here. okay? So that to me is what I call advocacy with a purpose, okay? Why is that important? Because OHA, we've committed not just my staff to forward the work, not only in the Criminal Justice Task Force, but we recently solidified an agreement with the Department of Labor. We will be putting in $500,000 for the next 2 years. They will be putting in $1 million. So that's $1.5 million for the next 2 years for incarcerated individuals coming out of the prison system, reintegrated back into the community for job skills development, whether that's resume, writing, looking for a job, what are their skills, assessment, job placement, actually placing you in one job that you qualified for, and then social support, whether that's counseling, family, a lot of that stuff we discussed in the report. So we as OHA, we're taking bits and pieces of the Criminal Justice Task Force report, and we are actually applying it in our organization, in our grants process, okay? So we've already started, okay, to do that. So with responsibility, you have to follow up with action. And so for me, it's not enough just to go do the study. You gotta okay, what you gonna do next? And then don't talk it, you gotta walk it and do it. Another effort is I assigned 2 grant writers, one from our nonprofit side and then one from our regular staff. In fact, this week they meet with Director Ted Sakai from Department of Safety. We are looking at applying for the Department of Justice. There's 2 pots of money, one for regular population, for programming, and then there's another side for Native Americans, which include Native American Indians, Native Alaskans, and Native Hawaiians. But the state, for some reason, has never applied for those monies. Can you think of it? So, boom! What's everyone like I say is bang, what is his name? Bam! Yeah, bam. Bam! Okay? So, OHA, we're on top of it. We're gonna try, I can't tell you that we did, but we're gonna try to access those monies. Why? For the past 2 years since the report came out, we've been talking to people from Department of Justice. I think one of them, forget her name, Yang, she went to visit you folks, Native Hawaiian Legal Corporation last year. So we've been in contact with them. We've sent them our report. We sent them the Criminal Justice Task Force. You know how well known our report and the task force report is. I mean, there was some kind of conference in Georgia or Tennessee, Kentucky, one of those southern states, and corrections, and they actually heard about our study and the task force, and they wanted to how did we do it? It's well, I don't know. We just got this problem and we did it. So I gotta really say that it does give me a sense of pride. That is something that OHA has done that really contributes to change in the community. It creates change in the system. So that's a different kind of advocacy. We usually fighting the state, do this and do that, But again, when you think of Konane, and you take that concept, you're strategizing at multiple levels. You gotta have almost like a counter for another counter. And so our counter is to get funding from the federal level, to match it with what we are able to fund, and then leverage that with the State Department of Safety for the Puhonua programs. Okay, so we don't wait you know, I demand my staff to be proactive, okay? Get off your calling and go find one initiative or find opportunities to go, you know. Enough talk already, just go and do, and thank you, mahalo, but go do something else again, you know. So we cannot wait, you know, and I believe that we have the initiative to do it, you know. So that's a whole new area to do, but it takes cocoa, it takes help and assistance. So we are working with Department of Corrections, Department of Public Safety, we're working with the U.S. Department of Justice to at least give ourselves the opportunity to try and bring those monies home here and guide it. Why that's important to us moving forward is that we gotta learn to empower ourselves. Like, just don't wait for, you know, they go do it, because the best behavior is past behavior, you know. The best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. So if you like change, you gotta do it yourself. That's my opinion. Other efforts that you can look forward to, we recently acquired over 502 acres in Wahiawa at the Kukaniloko Wahikapu site. Yeah. That was a big deal with the Office of Hawaiian Affairs and the State of Hawaii Department of Agriculture with the help of Trust for Public Lands. But the primary reason why we settled for that aina was really is to protect Kukaniloko. So we'll provide a cultural buffer, so that's our primary goal, is to restore it and for cultural use. But the remaining lands around Kukaniloko are agricultural lands, okay? And we're currently working with a number of farmers, whether that's education or a organic farm kind of model. And we will be working with West Oahu and Leeward Community College on creating a career pathway for high school students and even community college students in the area of farming. I don't know, they get the new term like biogenetic farming, not GMO. Yeah. Don't pretend, okay? I just be careful, you know. We not GMO, but it's something else. But it's farming. Yeah, it's farming. So the reason why I share that is I've already told my staff that I want a program for Pa'ahao who transition out. They still can be doing time, like maybe at Waiawa or Laumaka, but we pay them. And we're not going to pay them the current rate they get. I think they get like, what? 25 cents. No, we will pay them real money, like maybe $2. Yeah. You know, that's bigger than 25 cents. But, you know, we're going to pay them something more than what they got now. And then, minimum. I got to dig that down, Khalil. But I agree, because I think if you talk about the difficulty and the hardship of transitioning from being incarcerated to outside, you need that time to emotionally, mentally, physically prepare yourself. But one of the challenges we know is that many of those incarcerated don't come up with state ID, driver's license, no identification, no bank account, nothing. So we have to develop a program where they have that opportunity. You know, you get maybe a year to work, you save that money, housing is provided for you. So when you finish your time and ready to reintegrate, perhaps you have at least a chance for rent, and you can support yourself with a job, you know, and clothing. So as part of our program to develop those agricultural lands in Wahiawa, we will have a PAHAO program. That will be something on our plate that to discuss with Ted Sakai. So these are some creative ideas that the Office of Hawaiian Affairs were thinking about. As I mentioned, it's not waiting for anyone else to empower us. I believe we have to empower ourselves. If we want the kind of program, if we want the kind of vision to develop our people, and we still can do it in a very cultural way, we're going to look to provide not just food like vegetables and stuff, but we want to look at other ways of developing uwala, going back to native species of uwala. We want to look at the possibility even of growing ulu, because it's hypoallergenic. Is that right, Cookie? Hypoallergenic? Yeah, because you can make powder into it, right? But from what I understand, it's a superfood, you know. And so we're looking to look at that kind of technology for our people to do and to share. Those are some of the efforts, the initiatives that we are doing. I welcome you know, any of you. If you have any questions, you can see me after. We are committed to this area for incarceration. You know, when you do a study like the one we did, it's almost like you kind of obligated for life that you do it. And with the challenges with our correctional system will take many, many years. And with the Hawaiian community feedback on the Pu'uhonua Summit and the Criminal Justice Task Force, I think a lot of our people, whether they are incarcerated, have been incarcerated, or are friends or family of those behind the walls, we have a vested interest in helping them. Very simple. We have a vested interest in helping them. If we help them, if you take a wounded soul and you heal him or herself, they can become a very viable, thriving, functional person of society. You know, that's the kind of mana'o philosophy our kupuna had, which I think needs to be part of the programming we have today. No laila, oyu no ko mana'o vale no, mahalo nui yawa ko no ko olohia na mai for listening and for the opportunity to share. Mahalo.
Mahalo nui, kamana'o pono. I really want to acknowledge Kamana'o Pono. You know, probably a lot of you guys know myself, my personal politics as a sovereignty activist. I've been very critical of OHA, but I will always stand with Kamana'o Pono. He's been very supportive of many of the endeavors I've done. He's been a great leader, mentor, teacher to a lot of us in Halimua. And it was with Kamana'o's assistance and through OHA that we were able to get funding for this event and to purchase a large portion of the books. And so, mahalo nui. Also want to acknowledge real quick, in the house, talking to Kamana'o, Keola Chan of the Ahakane. Ahakane, the men's conference is now formalized into an organization with an executive director. And I want to point this out because the Ahakane now is looking at the long term, going into the communities and implementing youth at risk programming, using Halimua concepts, cultural concepts. And so I think that's important. At this point, we had some requests for a few questions perhaps. If we want to open up for Q&A. Terry? Okay.
Men who are coming forward, being at risk, that there's a threat to them for talking about something so important.
Yeah.
Is there any way, I mean, it's good that we have it on video, you know, as a way to get out to the community, but somehow is there any way that we can address what is happening to those folks in particular? Because that's what we need something happens there. The second thing I have to ask is, are there any statistics about how many of these folks are reading books to read? You know, because does anybody know about the, you know, literacy level? You know? I think that would be important to know about the literacy level because with the books, maybe we should couple, you know, reading classes, you know, something that goes to help them. Because reading is a skill that's going to help them when they come out. And not everybody is visual like that. You know, reading, there's other ways to express yourself. So if you can find another way, like people that's artists, you know, to help them to express themselves under the conditions.
One thing, Terry, I just will say, and I ran into this problem myself a little bit. OHA doesn't do direct services, yeah, come on now. But OHA does, they support projects through grants and funding and stuff. So one of the things that as the La Hui community we can do is we gotta devise the project and access the support, you know, and I'm confident with Kamanao's leadership we'll get that support, you know, towards Pa'ahau.
I wanted to respond to your question. I think we're doing what we can do from a legal standpoint. I believe that the men we represent and the men who have stepped forward to testify in support of changing policies to allow for Native Hawaiian religion to be practiced, I think those men up there are doing the most they can do. And I do believe it is, again, as I said, at great personal risk. But I think the legal part is such a small part of this puzzle. The other part is the part that Kamana'o talked about, the outreach, the going in, you know, following the proper channels, unfortunately, you know, going through the whole rigmarole, but going in, if that's what you have to give, then give that. You know, there's that side, but the other side is, what I haven't seen is strong grassroots movement to bring these men home. And that's what's missing. And these men for all intents and purposes, they don't vote. So when Kat goes to the legislature and testifies, she's the only voice because legislators and lawmakers, they're gonna listen to people who vote. And right now there is not, that I can see, there's great work being done by the task force, and OHA's doing everything they can to push this issue forward. But things won't change until we all stand up, you know, in a Pono way and say, you can't do this anymore. You can't, you know, one of the men I talked to said it's like taking, you know, he talked about how he can't see his son anymore to let him know, you know, before when he was here, the son's mother could say, you better behave, I'm gonna take, you know, we go and visit daddy, you better watch out. I mean, you know, or certain things he wants to pass on and he can't. His son is with his sister who does not want to perpetuate the things they were taught, the cultural practices they were taught. And until we as a community organize and really a serious grassroots effort to have lawmakers here that this needs to stop and they need to come home and we need to find ways like what OHA's talking about to make these men a part of our, you know, part of our fabric again. That would be my response to it.
then I just spoke to Kamanao too, Terry, and everyone else. Last year, Kamanao organized this Pa'ahau Summit, that was sponsored, at least the gathering was sponsored by OHAP in terms of the resources. But it was really comprised of a lot of community advocates and activists, which I consider myself one, and people from the inside, people who work in the corrections industry, counselors, and even Kalika Patterson, who was awarded, was there, and of course state officers. And at this time, it was really bringing different people together, but it was really Hawaiians in the house who were saying, this is the problem, and this is, we think, the direction that it needs to go in. We're looking at alternative approaches to incarceration and alternatives to the current rehabilitation. It's not working. At that time, that Pa'ahau Summit was kind of just, I felt like it was going to be just one time, okay, goodbye. And I challenged Kamanao and the people in the room. I said, hey, we cannot just meet one time and think we're gonna change something. This has to be, I want to see a working group, a committee. We got to stay on this issue. We got to stay on task. We got to, we got to talk to each other. We got to jostle one another and find a way to make a difference. So at that point, Kamanao agreed to continue with this Pa'ahau Summit, and we'll continue working on the issues and try to see where we can get. But I just talked to Kamanao about that, and he reaffirmed that maybe this summer would be a time to get together for part 2, the Pa'ahau Summit. And so we have people's contact info, and we'll send out notifications. And if you want to come and get involved and see what we can do collectively, that will be another opportunity to do so. So mahalo Kamanao. So we're kind of wrapping up. Before I forget, I want to say a couple of mahalos. First and foremost, I want to say mahalo to Native Hawaiian Student Services, Kapunawai, right? And Nalani Walutski, who I talked to them about this idea, and to my amazement, they made it happen, and they got funding, they got a grant, they got organized, and here we are today. Without Native Hawaiian Student Services, Nalani and Kahunawai, we wouldn't be here. And the official sponsorship of university faculty or department was critical, because as we all know, you got to have juice and credibility to try and make things happen. I also want to thank Kamanao and OHA for giving money for the books. I want to send a mahalo out to Ilima, Seto Lao, and Haumana, our student group, student movement for Aloha no Ka'aina, real busy and active on campus and doing a lot of things. I just want to make sure I don't forget the proper mahalos. And to all of our speakers, Kat, Sunny from Michael and NHLC, Charlotte and Lee, and to everyone else for coming and bringing books. And to our Pa'ahau, one thing on a quick note, I'm going to have Ilima close out with our info on the book drive. The book drive is ongoing, and Lima's going to tell us more about that, but I just want to leave us one thought. It's our instinct, I think, to want to bring the brothers home. And we have to be careful with that instinct, because it leaves out the brothers themselves, the guys who are in Arizona. And as I was talking to brother over here and many others, when you look at the conditions in Halawa, the archaic, rundown, dilapidated prison, where even their corrections methodology is way behind the times. In my experience, many of the brothers would prefer to be in Arizona because they're not triple bumped in a 2-man cell. It's cleaner. They have, and I hate to say this, but there's some reality there that physically the conditions are better. Despite the struggle, despite the other forms of oppression, the day-to-day, there's pros and cons. My main point in saying this is that we cannot speak for the inmates about just bring them all home, because my question is, bring them all home to what? Halava? I've been in Halava, and it's, you know, it will make you think twice, I'll tell you that. On another note, a very important thing that I don't want to forget is we started off with a target group of the men in Arizona simply because that was the experience that I had, and that I knew for a fact that they were out there dislocated with hardly any resources. But we started to kind of see, we started to learn and talk amongst ourselves that we don't want to be one lopsided, you know, just only the Kani, yeah. Our Wahine make up the family unit, and the Wahine are in fact the, you know, the foundation of the family unit. And we have a lot of Wahine that are incarcerated also. So we want to make sure that our Wahine are not forgotten. And a portion of this book drive, we're going to actually Mahele Sam and take to the women's prison as well, so that we're not forgetting about our mothers, daughters, grandmothers who are incarcerated too. Not forgotten, yeah. Mahalo once again. Final words from Ilima on the book drive and how you can continue to kokua.
Aloha kākou. Thank you for coming out today. Again, my name is Ilima, and I'm in a student hui on campus here called Haumana. It's the student hui for a larger outside organization called MANA, Movement for Aloha no Ka'aina. And one of the things that we're trying to do on campus is really pick up student engagement with some of these real critical political issues that affect Kanaka Maoli especially, but also that affect the wider community. And I thank everybody for coming out here. I really would like to see more students coming out to these events. One of the great things though that this event has afforded us is some really great organizing opportunities in terms of this book drive. So today is actually the launch event for a book drive that is going to last until the end of the semester. And we have a whole bunch of student huis on campus who are sponsoring drop sites around campus. And so I just wanted to kind of mention who they are. They're really supportive of this effort, and it kind of covers a wide range of departments in study and where they are, so that we can help tell people, you know, the most convenient locations to drop books. So at both of the Native Hawaiian Student Services offices, one right up here in 211 and one in Student Services 104, they're going to have a drop site. Hui Olapono, which is Native Hawaiian Public Health Student Hui, is sponsoring a site at the Biomedical Sciences Building, Biomed Building, in Court D. The Ethnic Studies Student Association, they're totally awesome, really supportive of all these sort of Kanaka Maoli-centered initiatives. They're sponsoring a drop site in Saunders. The Marianas Club of UH Manoa is sponsoring a drop site at Pacific Island Studies in Moore Hall. They're also really active in a lot of the, and really supportive in getting to know more and more about Hawaii and Kanaka Maoli-centered issues. The majority of the core group right now are Chamorro students from Guam. And then Hawaii Island Sciences in the house right now, also known as High Side. We have Katie Kamelamela back here and Eric Tong, that are core members of High Side. They're bridging students, Native Hawaiian students, and the community and sciences from a Hawaiian perspective. So they're using it to recruit students, to increase dialogue about the perspective of our kupuna in the sciences, and it's a really awesome hui. And they're sponsoring a site at the Marine Science Building, room 205 and room 205. So we've got books for Hawaiian prisoners in the sciences, in public health, in ethnic studies, and in Pacific Island studies, as well as in Hawaiian studies. And so I really want to mahalo these student groups for sponsoring these book sites. We also have one at the dorms in the Native Hawaiian residential learning program. So there's a floor in Johnson Hall that has a book site. It's actually in the lobby there. Windward Community College has a site, as well as KCC, and then one also at West Oahu campus, I believe at the library. Is that right, Koa? And at Hawaiian Student Services. So lots of opportunities. If you want to know, I know nobody memorized what I just said, manainfo.com has frequently asked questions list about different things, what kind of books to donate, can I do this, can I do that, as well as the drop locations. And so again, mahalo nui loa for coming out. I'm really looking forward to continuing this dialogue and seeing what role the community and especially students can play in this game of konane to strategically support empowerment for these pa'ahao, for our ohana that are incarcerated. So mahalo nui.
The rain come down into the river runs out to sea, the sea surrounds an island, silent is home. Come on down to the water, come and go with me. We could both jump in, swim on out to the sea. Oh, let's go down. Go down to the water. The water of love is sweet, flows to you and me. The rain come down into the river. The river runs out into the sea, and the sea surrounds an island. This island is home. Come on down to the border, come and be my friend. What if we cross over and not come back again? Oh, let's go down. Go down and cross over. Water of love is sweet. It rains down over me. Oh, the rain come down into the river. River runs out into the sea, and oh, the sea surrounds an island. This island is home to me. Come on down to the border, come with me, my friend. What if we cross over and not come back again? No, let's go down. Go down and cross over. Oh, the water of love is sweet. Rain down over me. Oh, the rain come down into the river. River runs out into the sea. Oh, the sea surrounds an island. This island is home to me. Oh, the rain come down into the river. The river runs out into the sea. No, sea surrounds an island. This island is home to me. This island is home to me. This island is home to me. This island is, oh sweet island, home to me.